All right, so today's video is going to be on rotating lifts and when you should do it. So the purpose of this video is to give you guys an understanding of when to rotate lifts and why you should do it in the first place, because there's a couple things that you need to understand when you're looking to change a program, even just understand lifting and programming in the first place. So the reason why I don't give out just like a general kind of generic answer like, oh, after 8 weeks or something, you should rotate lifts is because there's nuance to everything, and it always varies based on a bunch of factors like your training age, your context, and that lift in general. I also like to just teach you guys not just what to do, because I don't think that's a long-term sustainable thing to do, just knowing what to do. You need to know why you're doing it so you can actually understand it properly and execute it properly. That's probably going to be the biggest recurring theme that you see on my channels. I'm never going to give you a straight answer of how many sets to do, how many weeks you should wait until rotating lifts, because you need to make the decision since everybody's highly individual in this stuff. And I'm not acting like everybody has this crazy different like lifting basically protocol that they need to follow, because that's just not the case. We're not all special, but we are all a little bit different. We do have different goals and different training ages. And even like minor little changes can make a pretty big difference with this stuff. So just understand that you're going to be the one that makes this decision. I don't have a quick 30-second answer for you here, and you'll find that the more of my videos that you watch. So to get into my first point here, rotating lifts is a useful tool if used properly. You need to understand why and when to do this, or you actually risk it being counterproductive. So obviously with lifting, I've talked about this before, but you need to be accumulating quality volume and tonnage, and that's what drives your hypertrophy. Obviously, there's multiple methods of hypertrophy, but this is going to be kind of like the mainstay. That's the big thing that we're going to be chasing and prioritizing when it comes to our training and our programming. There are many ways muscle growth is achieved, and you have to first assess why you're doing that lift in the first place and why you're looking to rotate it. So, guys, the biggest thing you have to know is you have to understand why that lift is in your program. So that's the first question. Okay, why are you doing that lift in the first place? What is the goal of that lift? And you have to listen to what I'm saying right now, because this is basically the entryway to realizing what you need to do and when to rotate your lifts. So if you have a particular lift in mind, I want you to ask yourself this question right now. Why are you doing that lift? What's the purpose of it? Every lift has its own basically it serves its own purpose in your program, to put it simply. So I'll get to an example a little bit later in this video, but the reason why you would do a squat is generally going to be different from the reason why you do a leg extension. You need to assess the benefits and the drawbacks of that lift, and that will help give you an idea of if it can be rotated out of your program and if it should be rotated out of your program. So the second question that you have to ask yourself is, why are you looking to rotate it? Are you looking to rotate it because it gives you pain? Are you looking to rotate it because it's boring? Are you looking to rotate it because you saw a fancy new variation on Instagram or TikTok? Like, what's the reason? That's the second question you have to ask yourself. So the first question for that lift, why is it in your program? What is the purpose that that lift serves? What is its utility? Second question that you have to ask is, basically, why do you want to rotate it? So what's its utility, and why are we changing it? What's the purpose? Understand that, and then you can start to think about this stuff and get some practical advice here. So an example that I'm basically going to be going over today is going to be the squat. So typically we use squats to chase strength progression while accumulating quality volume and achieving mechanical failure, or at least getting close to it. So obviously, as you guys know by now, I'm not somebody that wants to chase progression, but generally speaking, in a hypertrophy program, a squat is a lift that you can load up really heavy. You're going to be seeing strength increases very rapidly, and you're going to be accumulating a lot of tonnage and volume with that lift. So if I stop progressing on my squat tonnage, I'm now lacking the main reason I'm doing squats in the first place. It would be best for me to rotate it to something similar so I can continue to reap the benefits that we would still be getting from the squat, which would be the volume and the mechanical failure, without experiencing the side effects of the squat, like the fatigue accumulation, stress on the lower back, and excessive warm-up time, etc. So let's just take a leg day, for example. Just keep it simple here. So you have a squat. You're generally using that lift because it's the easiest to overload, and you can basically get really close to compound mechanical failure. You're applying a lot of tension on that lift. Obviously, when you're doing a lift like that, there are the drawbacks. So you do have to be very mindful when you're programming it. So if I'm stalling out of my squat and it's going nowhere and the training just sucks, then okay, so I'm still accumulating quality volume, but I'm not necessarily progressing. It might not be the highest quality volume for the squat that I possibly could have. So that's not a bad thing. Not necessarily a bad thing. If your lift is like stalling, you're still accumulating quality volume. The reason why it is a problem with some lifts, like the squat, for example, is because it has those side effects or those drawbacks that come with it. So when you're thinking about like that finisher, that last exercise you do in the program, the general reason why we do something like that is to accumulate more volume once you're generally more tired out and your joints are kind of tired. So let's say at the end of the workout, typically you do a leg extension. So the reason why you do that is obviously to target them a little bit differently, for sure, but there's no stress on your lower back or your hips or anything. They're not very fatiguing cardiovascularly. You're not going to get out of breath from doing them. Their purpose is to add in high quality quad volume. So take the squat that we're thinking about rotating, for example, that's really stalling out. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but we can get the same benefits. And I'm not saying that leg extensions are equal to a squat, but if we're just utilizing the squat now to accumulate quality tonnage and volume, we might as well do something that doesn't have those drawbacks. So at that point, maybe you should consider rotating your squat into another compound lift. So you could basically pick any type of squat variation. If you're looking to focus on your quads, I'd probably recommend something like a hack squat, a leg press, maybe a safety bar squat. And that way you can start fresh. You can still slowly progress over time from that muscle growth. So generally that's what you're going to need to do. And it's not a bad idea to be chasing strength like this. Obviously, it's not something I recommend, but the reason why I want to make this video is because I do understand that strength is a goal for a lot of you guys that are watching this video. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Obviously, you do have to be very mindful of the way you program these lifts if you're training for hypertrophy too. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you need to be mindful of the stuff and know why you're doing that lift, what the utility is, and why you're looking to rotate it. So with that being said, I'm going to try and keep the video just at that today. I will have a more in-depth video on this in the future, but if you guys have any questions or anything, definitely leave them in the comments. I'll be sure to get back to you. So thanks for watching.